Thank you, Jacques, for that very generous introduction and for the wonderful and very apt Derek Walcott poem. Very, very apt for this global moment of all sorts of crises, including, of course, the biggest of them all, the ecological crisis. And thank you, Eduard and Jacques, for inviting me back to read at Red Wheelbarrow Poetry Collective. I remember, it was a very, very special reading for me when I actually physically read there at Mersenberg at the Commons. And Red Wheelbarrow holds a very, very special place in my heart, as does South Africa. So, so it's like I'm reading with my favorite people for my favorite place in the world, probably. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you. And thank you, all of you. So many poets here. I'm really humbled and feel a nice warm glow. Thank you. And Jacques, actually, I've gone way beyond this book because it's the book is actually now 4 years old or something. And so I'm going to be reading not just from this, but also some poems that came later, some of which were published in anthologies, etc. And I will read one hitherto unpublished poem from a work in progress. So, yeah, I think I'll start with I'm joining in from New Delhi, and so I thought just to establish a sense of place, I'll start with a poem called Delhi 2007. Delhi 2007. In the small park between 8 flats, 5 teens type SMS texts. 2 gray-black crows on the windowsill of the bedroom record everything they see with their eyes askance. 3 old women huddle together and knit the winter in balls of wool. 8 young feet wearing glittering sandals exit the bargain shop in festive excitement. 4 hijras under the flyover quell their hunger, smoking cheroots and eating curses. 6 ghazals drip from the tomb of a Sufi. At 2 at night, a bloated Lord Krishna floats up dead in the Yamuna. This gives you like a picture of Delhi in a few snapshots. The next couple of poems are actually from a series that I wrote after travels in Egypt. It's called, actually the title of the book is from the title of that poem. Travels in the Hereafter is the name of that sequence. I'll read just 2 poems from that. The first one, Necropolis, Valley of Kings. They built these where no human or raven even could hope to arrive. Burrowing with love and care and toil, paying death with death. Hands more than human, painted with infinite heed, each king and god, tree and leaf and bird, the name becoming the thing. Out the hieroglyphs of life here and history hereafter. Another poem from that sequence, The Queen Who Would Be King. Now let the poem tell the story actually, but while you're in Egypt, those of you who've traveled in Egypt would know this, that mostly what you do is you travel to see places. You take a cruise up the River Nile, and all the monuments, everything is by the river, on the banks of the River Nile. So you keep stopping at various places, get off, see whatever, spend some time, move on. And so one of the places that we stopped at, it was really striking. We went in there, and there were all these statues, big, gigantic sculptures, statues of a figure that seemed female, uh, except that she had a beard, and there were multiple such figures. This happened to be the temple for Hatshepsut, who was the only woman pharaoh in ancient between ancient and medieval Egypt, actually. And so there was no way that Egyptian iconography had to depict a woman king, a queen. So the beard denotes power, probably. And so it's very interesting. It kind of throws you off a bit when you see that. She wears a skirt and she has a beard in these gigantic, multiple sculptures. The queen who would be king. At the doorways to the temple, a bearded woman guards the gods. Many bearded women. Extravagant mysteries in stone endure elegant and imposing, with disdain for the puzzled. O Hatshepsut, queen who would be king, she of styluses and swords who styled herself thus, obeying the rules of the ruled in which only kings figured. Hatshepsut, you still could not bend the adamant reality with your mythopoeic metal. Your name on the obelisks stays erased by the treacherous orders of the one who came after you. The one who could not bear the one who could not bear without bristling with impotent anger and greed your queer attitude of command, your unmaker, your husband's son. Uh, the next couple of poems are again from a sequence. The sequence is titled Nudes, and these are basically like a few portrait nudes. I mean, these are portraits of nudes. The nude doing various things, nude with various objects, actually. So imagine this as painting, portrait painting. First one is nude with a watch, nude with a syringe, etc., etc. So I'll read nude with a syringe. She plunges it in and thrills at the touch of the cold, sharp tip. Her fingers coiling in lines outwards. Her thumb pushing in the needle past bruised skin, and she thinks how lonesome it must be in the shivering blue. The last of that sequence, nude with a pen. She knows the pen is the knife that holds the world at a distance. As she flexes, holds easy the stance of the steady quill, or a heron poised at the edge of the pond, ready to take flight into the sky, bruised blue as her naked, marked belly. Mm, the next poems are actually again from from a sequence. This was a sequence. My father's joined us here. He's Sachidanandan, and he's a very well-known poet. And so these were actually poems written for my father, but also it's these are poems from a daughter to a father, and also from a woman poet to a man poet as well. So um It's called Letters to Father, and I'll read two poems from here. Oh, he also has many, many poems for me, by the way. I mean, over the years, I've received several poems as gifts. So this one is from Letters to Father, fragment 3, Kites on 15th August. 15th August is the day that India got independence from the British. Typically, kites are flown on that day. That's a way of celebrating the open sky or whatever. So this is Kites on 15th August. Kites flying overhead, Father, like only kites can do, controlled, yet soaring beyond boundary walls, yet entangled with each other, terminal. And we must still sing the freedom songs, the voice hoarse, the lines crooked, tuneless. In her white handspun and broken spectacles, I remember grandmother. The next from this sequence is called Storms. Storms, now this is a reply poem to a particular poem of my father's, a much celebrated poem in Malayalam. It's called Synonyms of Rain. He translates his own poems into English, so bilingual in that sense. So this poem called The Synonyms of Rain, it actually celebrates the southern, we are from Kerala, so that's like at the southern tip of the Indian subcontinent, and the monsoons are very dramatic there. So my father's poem celebrates the monsoon in its dramatic sounds and wonderful fragrances, and it's beautiful, it's lyrical, and it's a celebration of the rain. And this is my reply poem. It's called Storms. Let us de-romanticize storms, Father, unlyric them, and unlearn the ways of how birds scatter and winds gather, and yakshis descend with rain's long hair. When the sparks blow the circuit board and the water pools on the table, soaking the spines of books unread, and with a mop, your back bent, you wipe in a furious sweep, trying to dry the dyed spines as you can hear afar, the gale smashing the windscreen of your car. And you slip on the damp floor, and all you can ever think of is how not to be. The goddess of your fragile home, see it bursting at its brittle, spittle bitter seams, and long for that rust-red room of your own, the blues. These two, Father, are the synonyms of rain. Maybe I'll actually read another poem from that sequence. Just occurred to me. To dwell in a line. To dwell in a line, Father, is to tease the contours, to tease its contours, to coax it out of its taut shell, the sly folks wooed out of ours. To dwell in a line is to caress it, to release the smell of fresh lissom rain and that nebulous mix of odors of lemon and pomegranate blossoms and a drying umbrella, sprightly after its nightly jaunt of jasmines. Father, to dwell captive in a line is to hear the flapping, restive, against the hermetic pains of a myna's wings. the feather leaving its stubborn auburn trace as you dwell inside the bars of the fettered line's prison cell. It is in that frisson of bird and bar that the line inhabits you, Father, dwelling in your every inherited cell. Um, the next uh, the next poem I'll read is called, oh yeah, I mean, I have multiple sclerosis and I do have a few poems that reference them, and there's a sequence about MS, but so let the poem tell the story of how it first appeared. Perpetual stockings. The first to go numb was the grip of the hip, a persistent loosening fall as the cold slithered down her unsteady legs and encircled her feet in a pair of stockings made of unfeeling ice. Startled, her feet took one step after another, out of step in the unfamiliar beat. 1, 3, 4, 7, 10. The stockings, frozen in place, spun her feet in a tornado of forgetting. As her nomadic feet bled, a relentless red dance in perpetual stockings. Um, this the next one actually is a poem that I do have a lot of poems to people. I mean, poem to Paul Celan, there's poems to lots of poets, Najib Mahfouz, Paul Celan, Mahmoud Darwish, and etc. etc. And I also have poems for people, for other people as well. So this is a poem for Michael Jackson, the next one. This was written actually just, I mean, his when he died by suicide, something broke inside me actually. I mean, I was very affected. I mean, like many of us who were fans, I'm sure. So this is called Moonwalking. Moonwalking, or the genealogy of movement, to Michael Jackson. Fearing the sudden sting of father's hands, my walk became, sorry, fearing the sudden sting of father's hands, my walk learned the permanence of precision. Fearing the gravity of growing up, my voice remained thin, reed like. In fear of the whiplashes that rained ceaseless on my ancestors' backs, my slave walk became a tiptoe. In fear of the unseen dark of black, my skin went white, bloodless. Fearing the roars of my millionth fan, I hid my mates in a closet. Then, to put an end to the constant hide and seek with fierce ghouls, I shut up all my spooks beyond the tall walls of Neverland. And, shadowless, like a black cat, without letting drop a footfall, I moonwalked away from myself. Let's take a break from the gloom and the doom, and I'll just read in case you think I write only, you know, somber poetry, that I want to share with you one or two funny poems. This one is called In This Issue. There are a few fellow academics here as well, so they'll know that I'm taking the mickey out of academia in some sense. Okay, so in this issue, the 18-meter long romantic poem by the 47-year-old promising poet. The long-awaited 25-kilo novelette by the leading novelist with one foot in the grave. An interview with the auto rickshaw driver who plays a cameo in TV serials, driving the heroine to the hero's house, about the representational value of subalterns. A candid interview with the wife poet of the above-mentioned budding poet about his untamed creative processes. Digital poetry and market ploys. A few thought-provoking thoughts by the hot-selling Marxist thinker. The Weekend book reviewer presents languid and heavy-bottomed Latin American short stories in his usual arousing manner. Only 15 rupees for one issue, $20 for foreign subscribers. Maybe after some more somber poetry, we can come back to another funny poem. The next poem I'll read was written during the, after the terror attacks in France in 2015. It's titled, No, Do Not Go There. No, do not go there. The pendulum of the basilica clock is a bomb that will go off the moment you step on the bell tower's hunchbacked staircase, winding its way to the sky, crisscrossed by drones over Beirut and Aleppo and Baghdad, cities of fevered fairy tale dreams, now but cries of John the Baptist's head on a platter, dusted with the pain of the apostate and the infidel. No, do not go there. The refugee child's shoes stained by the perilous salt water of the ocean she tried to cross, to find a home elsewhere where there is no war, as they play their war games only outside their borders, pressing the buttons of kill and burn and smash and bomb and kill till the war, reluctantly, comes to their cafes, and the football match turns bloody, and music stops playing the tunes of liberté, égalité. There was never fraternity in any case, not even a pretense of it, not even a pretense to love your neighbor, but kill the joy of play and sport in the schools of Kabul and Gaza and Cairo and Jerusalem, where every supper could be the last, where every candle is lit for the dead, where every prayer is a cry of the living, where every string is tuned to a requiem, where every utterance is protest and poetry of Hikmet, of Darwish, of Faiz, of Mir. Do not go there. The next one, actually, I'll read from the sequence. Ari Cetus is here, great poet, sociologist, theatre person, etc. So Ari Ari has been very instrumental in my life in general. And when Jacques introduced, he mentioned Insurrections, which is a poetry music project between South African and Indian poets and musicians. Uh, I write songs, basically. I write words for songs, just a word maker. So over so many years, how many years? 14 years. One has written very many poems and song lyrics. So I'll read a couple maybe. Not the long ones, but the short ones. Mourning the insurrection. They come with lathis and bayonets of silk. When the sun beat down, its rays all worn, and we fall each one, Jack, king and queen, a one and a two, a lean, hungry 10, cards in a pack, the red and the black and the red, where the flowers bled, the colors of the dead, the colors of the dead. The next I'll read is the Killer's song. We come to wait for all of you to forget. The river is in spate, the river of blood hate. A fanged moon is on the rise. The fields are just plowed. We come to wait for the rush of black clouds. The spades are laid low from turning the soil red. The trees cast shadows on the fresh graves of the dead. We come to wait for the names of the fallen arising from the shadows, their fast multiplying. We come to wait, we come to kill in a caressing shower of shrapnel and bombs. You have nowhere to turn, nowhere to go. One more, maybe from this. I mean, there have been many others after this, actually, but I'll have to hunt those out. So I'll just read this one, How to Walk. This was sung beautifully by Tina. I should not even try to. Tina Scow composed this into song, and it's a magically beautiful composition. I hear Tina when I read this and um, fall short of that magic. But How to Walk. The first step you take, walk in the light of the new mauve sun. The second step you take, walk to the beat of chenda drums. The third step you take, walk right through the lair of wolves. The fourth step you take, walk with sand in your shoes. The fifth step you take, walk with the sun's broad stride. The sixth step you take, walk up the steep mountainside. The seventh step you take, walk on water on the battered waves. The eighth step you take, walk all over your tongue's silent grave. The next step you take, walk out of this land's heavy chains. This is how to walk. The next step you take, walk out of your land's crying rain. This is how you walk. This is how you walk. Mbali Vilakasi, she's also here listening to this, and she's a fantastic performer herself, and she's part of Insurrections ensemble. So she did a laughing emoji right now when I spoke about. I hear Tina singing this, and you're unfortunate to listen to me rather than Tina. Okay, so I'll read a. Mm. Okay, one funny poem from that, from Insurrections actually, because it's all getting a bit heavy. The Chorus of the Mall Rats. This was written for our album production called Storming, which was sort of re-adaptation of Shakespeare's Tempest, but set in contemporary times. Our Prospero is prosperous, and he's a shipping tycoon, and he also is an owner of a lot. He's a landowner who owns chains of malls and stuff like that, probably. And so, yeah, and our Ariel and Caliban were women, Ariella and Calibana. So do look out for the album. It's actually, I think it's Ari. I hope it's still available to buy. Um, so this was actually quite an exercise. It taught us a lot as well, I'm sure. Um, so this is actually just the chirping of the mall rats. It's you can see that it's yeah. Anyway, I don't want to explain. Okay, chorus of the mall rats. Glittering leather shoes of the mall rats. The tinkling chatter of the mall rats. With heads bent over cell phones, the mall rats. Lighting candles to the stock market, mall rats. A villa here, a villa here, a tarmac there, scream the mall rats. What's the price of rubber today? Enquire mall rats. Praying to the cross of pepper, the mall rats. See the teak in Wayanad, offer the mall rats. Come to my pool on my jet plane, say mall rats. My daughter marries a tycoon today, boast the mall rats. Plutonium under that hill, point mall rats. Your Devis are devils, break them, cry the mall rats. Wearing glittering shoes, the mall rats. They twitter and chirrup, the mall rats. Heads bent over cell phones, the mall rats. Lighting candles to the stock market, the mall rats. Mm. Okay, now before we run out of time, I'm going to close this quickly. Before we run out of time, I want to read. I'm sure all of us, many of us poets here, have written poems during this ongoing genocide in Gaza, and you know, the last 2 years is of course not the beginning of it, but I have poems for Palestine from earlier as well, 2015 and etc. So this is from the recent bunch of poems written for Palestine. This one is called Aban. Philippa is here. Philippa edited this into a book actually. So there was a book called Whirling Light that came out of South Africa, and I was thank you, Philippa, for including this poem in that pamphlet for Palestine. It's called, this one is titled Abandoned. I mean, there was this whole sense of not being able to write. I mean, what do you write anymore, right? And also how fraudulent one feels as a privileged witness. Abandoned. This poem is abandoned. This poem does not bear witness. This poem does not ponder why. This poem faces a wall of darkness. This poem does not bake bread. This poem is abandoned. This poem is made of trash. This poem looks for words. This poem is tuned to Al Jazeera. This poem reads countercurrents. This poem does not treat the wounded. This poem is abandoned. This poem signs petition after petition. This poem marches on streets far away. This poem waits for the Eid moon slice. This poem, quiet and unnoticed, dies. This poem smells of pigeon poop. This poem does not deliver a bomb. This poem does not break its fast in Rafah. This poem does not slake the thirst of Gaza. This poem is abandoned. I'll read one that has not been published so far from among the Palestine poems, Apocalypse. So this is how it comes, perhaps. These are kind of, you can see that they're short lines like this. So this is how it comes, perhaps. We sip our tea, shake our heads, shake our heads to the news of the annihilation of a people by the biggest bombs this side of Hiroshima. As if, as if we have learned nothing at all from even the last 80 years, nothing to speak of the barbaric times before that. As if entire cities turning to rubble, entire family trees eliminated, entire stretches of olive gardens on fire, babies killed with precise headshots, as if none of this is reason enough to bring the world to a standstill. As if we can still just walk in and claim our neighbors' homes and pretend nobody lives there, or protests, or has sleepless nights. This side of Hiroshima. Um, I'll end with, I mean, this was a sequence that was written during COVID. Um, it's called Exodus, Untold Suffering in India. I was stuck in lockdown I was not at home. I was locked down. Most of you know actually how Modi had this sudden lockdown. We just were locked down wherever we were. We just weren't allowed to move after that for like months. So um, Exodus. So one was, I mean, it's an experience of exile, of also the extreme suffering of daily wage laborers who had to walk miles, thousands, actually thousands of miles. My goodness, it's unimaginable, how that happened. Um, they were trying to just get home. Nobody knew what was happening. The world is in turmoil, and so Exodus. The first one is called Artist's Fingers. Dragonfly wings darken the sky. And so this is actually written like it's what I call a fake sonnet. Um, Dragonfly wings darken the sky, and the swell breaks the banks and rushes into walls and doors. In his sky studio, the metalsmith sculpts a church bell. Thunder beats its frenzied drums, everything sways, and fragments of idols cover the altar of earth's floor, and confessionals quake with hollow men's ways. Your fingertip lit up and flickered, a lighthouse, shone forth amidst roiling butterfly wings. The ship's shadow comes ashore near, near. They're coming in search of home, the refugees. Another from that, the tent of wings. As the tents in the open multiply, An eagle overhead surveys the huddled, baking bread on open fires, drying the sky on the clothesline. Hanging the curtain to dry behind the stage, shadows move in the motion picture. Now still, now darting to the frenzied beat of chenda drums. They cover their ears, the ground trembles, and all are drenched in the thunder clap. Wet is the sky. Wet is the sky, the fire, the earth, all are now water. A grave, a green tent shoots up. Wings of mercy
Ehi,
gather the dark.
Magretto,
Raphael, you'll need to switch off your microphone, probably. Something. And all are drenched in the thunderclap. Wet is the sky, the fire, the earth. All are now water. A green tent shoots up. Wings of mercy gather
no.
the dark, the fallen. Okay. That sequence goes on like that with metalsmiths and carpenters and boat makers and things like that. And then there's a poem called Redemption Boat. There's another one called The Promised Land. I'll now just read the last one, which is Hammer and Nail. Oh no, actually no. This one follows from the previous one. So The Promised Land. The carpenter puts together the planks for a boat, knocks on the wood, hammers in a nail. Lips form prayers, so it never sank. The helmsman steers forward the prow. The captain counts miles by star grammar towards the promised land. Winds grow from the wing flaps of an eagle. In waves of longing, the sails swell. The tempest's megaphone blares and whips men's heads in lashes of rain. Against a vision of graves, fingertips turn busy with rosary beads. The Red Sea's parting water turns to wine. Last one, Hammer and Nail. The carpenter hammers in a nail, brings the twisted feet together, drip by drip, sees carpenter blood drop in strings. Startled, he loosens the fourth nail's grip. Sweat wets his brows. Wet is the soil. Wounds spread on the wood in contagious rings. Thunder rolls. The parched earth opens her jaws. For a single drop of water, he screams. The way of the cross is exposed by blinding light. Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. This is the very last poem. Thank you, thank you, Annie. Thank you for all of you saying various things here. Okay, so this is the very last one. I thought it's good to end on a slightly brighter note. Um, this is actually from an ongoing series. I still haven't finished the series. It's called Excavations, and it sort of imagines a post-human world or something. This was again begun during the many years, the 3 years of COVID, which we now seem to have kind of forgotten all the lessons of. But excavating a letter. What do we tell you when we wake tomorrow, little one? That there was a dawn that burst upon us with bird song. That there was a color we called green. Oh, so many shades of it. In the forest near the river that used to shimmer with fish tails. that the water would chime to us in eternal ebb and flow, high and low, notes splashed by the thin oars of a sharp boat, carrying fishnets at daybreak, ferrying children in the dusk. That we broke bread with our neighbors and uttered a prayer that came easy on our purple lips, that would pucker up for a kiss as we held each other and the night sighed, and we thought we would never die. So that is Excavations, which is still going on. And thank you. First of all, thank you, Red Wheelbarrow Poetry Collective. Thank you, Jacques and Eduard, great poets themselves. And all of you, amazing poets who are here. You know, I'm just Kobus, Ari, Mbali, my goodness, who all is here? So many. Annie, Anita, you know, it's just overwhelming to have, and it's wonderful to turn this into a poetry party. And I really wish I could listen to you all. Actually, now is the time probably to listen to you all. I really hope each of you would read at least a poem each. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Edward and Jacques.
Thank you, Sabitha. That was such a powerful reading. I loved the series in particular. But yeah, it was a journey. And I thought I could perhaps start us off with a question about some of the poems you didn't read from the very last section in the book, and drawing, while people have a chance to think about what they might like to ask. So it's a bit cheeky of me, but I might actually ask you to read another poem from that section.
Oh, no.
But that's up to you.
Okay, fine. I will. I
just think the
Which
title.
one? Do you know which one? You can.
I'll leave that to you, but I want to sort of just say that it's from the title as well, which I think is just such an inspired choice for a title, because if you separate the here and the after, you've got time.
Yeah,
And you've
so actually the last section, the last section of the book has all these poems. One is called Living, Dying. One is called How to Leave the Past in the Past, which is a listicle poem. It's like 1 to
yes.
12, whatever. And the book actually ends with a poem called Perhaps.
Oops, yeah.
So which one should I? Okay, let me read Living, Dying. Living is not an art. Dying is. When muscles start to slacken and the skin begins to sag, and all you want is a couch to curl up and sleep in, and a quilt to keep you warm and snug in your lonely, forlorn flat, and a mug of hot cocoa, and your Calvino to wake up to, and placid waters from the balcony randomly gazed at below, with their surface now glinting, now mellow, now glinting, like a clock, or your heart ticking its way into, you hope, a serene sunset, without kicking your way out of words, of, of words and routines, of the coffee cup and lusty nicotine, and the Proust you always meant to catch up on, so that you thought you could remember all the things past in their dying embers, and things yet to come, such as the wind scattering your last discrete atoms.
Thank you.
Edward, you wanted to say something? Yeah, so that's one of the last poems, the after. Yeah.
Yes, but it also ties into history and mythology, the after part of the title. Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to say more about the title, about the poems that are the poem for Paul Celan, for example. You've got another fragments sort of series in shared memory of Leloza's Gauguin. I don't know how you pronounce that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
love
yourselves go
that.
guy. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, so there are, there are, yeah, that's true. I mean, I do reference, I mean, like we all do, I'm sure, things that we've seen, we've heard, music that we've heard, paintings or films that we've seen, things, of course, come, the friendships we have, the writers we've read, everyone, everything comes in, poetry is like this big bag, right? I mean, it's just, it's a whole doll or something, so yeah, so there are, which is also why, I guess, Edward, which is also why the sequences, I mean, I have a habit of writing in sequences. And so it's almost like, this so much more, so much more. And then, of course, but then you do the carpentry after you've written all that so much more, right? That's when the carpentry begins. You chisel, 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 make it, you know, make it say only what it really, really needs to say or something. So, so one tries to just do this stuff, this carpentry, the chiseling with words, and and sometimes actually let other people's words do the talking for you as well. So for example, when one references a Calvino or a Proust or a Borges, like I do sometimes, or writing to Paul Celan, now, so you're already kind of imagining a reader who, who's inhabiting that world with you, inhabiting those words with you. And so yeah, so one also kind of learns to live in that borrowed world of words.
I hear you. I mean, one of the, sorry, I will open up the floor for questions, but I think in one of the poems for your father, you bring in Neruda as well. So,
Mhm.
so, so it's this big conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, Neruda. Now, Neruda actually is, my father has been a great translator of Pablo Neruda into Malayalam. And I actually translated the final book of Pablo Neruda's called Plenos Poderos, Fully Empowered. The translation in English is entitled Fully Empowered. Um, so that I think it's a small book. It's a much smaller book than many of, unlike his odes or whatever. I think it has 32 poems, and I translated all of them into the Malayalam, which then went into a book of an anthology of Neruda's poetry in translation. So yeah, so Neruda has just always been there in our library, in our minds. Where actually we could so many of, I'm sure many of us here, definitely in Kerala, he's Pablo Neruda. You could almost be called a poet from Kerala. Um, Many of us, can recite like entire poems from memory. It's just, um, yeah, he's just, and there's just so, and there are so many Nerudas and Nerudas and Nerudas. Of course, I mean, forget about all the problematic stuff that we learned recently and later on, etc. But that's a question for another day. Um, but yeah, but Neruda, yeah, it's again, it's a shared reading between my father and me as well. So there is the poem that Edward just mentioned, which is, I'm just trying to figure out yeah, that's titled Back to the Origins after Neruda. I'm not going to read from it. Um, but I'll just read the first line only. Poetry came to me, father. That's how so it's, in through the whatever, etc. And then it kind of brings it to Neruda and Vallejo and, and things, how poetry comes through poetry as well. So, um,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that's also a poem about reading. So, yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Sabitha? There's some comments in the chat. Jacques, your hand is raised. Go for it.
Oh, Savita, that was a wonderful reading. It was so lyrical and so committed. Um, at the same time, it was just lovely to listen to you. I was fascinated by the poem that is abandoned because it's a beautiful ambiguity, isn't it? That you you keep saying the poem is abandoned, and I take it it's abandoned in the face of poetry not being able to do very much to alleviate suffering. But then, of course, the poem is not abandoned. You know, you finish the poem, and it's a wonderful poem. So it's abandoned, but it's not abandoned. I don't know if you want to say something about that.
Um, well, that is that's the perplexity I think most of us feel when we write about um, something so horrific and so unutterably horrific. So how do we? I don't know. I was just, it just, I'm sorry, but I'm again lost for words. But the futility of it all, ultimately, I think it's just that's the thing that strikes one about it all. The and and as you said, so how does one make a poem do anything at all, right? I mean, the poem does nothing,
Yeah.
but it just is. It's there, but also it actually does nothing. So so one tries to capture that moment of um a moment of being utterly lost for words. It's just
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, thank you. I mean, that's yes, exactly. And the other thing is, I wonder what it feels like to move between writing poems and writing songs. Uh,
That's a great question. Thank you. That's actually there is some overlap. Actually, I think my poetry has benefited for having written songs. Uh, one the way one relates to rhyme and meter and sound is like so much more. One is so much more alert to that
yes.
while writing songs, right? You have to make it work. So syllable
Mm,
length, all of it becomes important, and then for it to be sung sometimes, elongated, a poem that a line that ends with some elongated or vowel sounds, for example, are easier to improvise upon, and you can just keep going. You can just keep going if it ends on an R or an E or a whatever. So one learns this thing about sound. What is it that
yes.
works? What is it that it can be and also the power of repetition. One understands
Yes.
many
Yes.
things about many things, which actually is where poetry originates from, right? I mean, it is song, it was song, it is song. So,
Mm,
it kind of takes you back in that sense to probably something like the time of the epics, etc. You you
yes.
just you go back to a time when it was sung, recited, passed on orally,
Yes.
so that
Yes.
orality of poetry, um, that one becomes very, very aware of with when one is writing songs. It's both the strength as well as the limitation of songwriting. You know, the
Yes.
the, the metrical, the necessity for a metrical pattern, the constraint of, as well as actually, I mean, but it's lovely, that Jacques, you know about the dogme movement, do you? Lars von Trier, the filmmaker, Lars von
Yes.
Trier makes cinema. I mean, he does a whole,
Yes.
yeah. So he dogme cinema, right? So for each film, he keeps a certain limitation on himself, right? So that's how all
Yes.
the dogme directors did it. So one where you shoot it only on a set, another where you're using only handheld cameras, that Dancer in the Dark. the film set one is the one with Nicole Kidman. What's it called? Yeah, so basically, you just you give yourself a certain limitation. So when you're writing song, as well as actually metrical poetry, like the false sonnet I told you about, but ultimately I had to make it a false sonnet,
Yes.
because a sonnet is it's there is that rhyme scheme, there is etc., etc., sorry, C, and then etc., etc. So like that, it goes like that. So there is a certain false iambic pentameter and actual rhymes and whatever, so it's kind of mix of things. So it's interesting to try and work within a form and within constrictions of whether it's meter, length, syllables, shape, whatever, so it's kind of and the sound. So for all of this, I think it's good practice for poets to try and write a song. Actually, it just is very, very, very good. It also feels very nice. I mean, one realizes also that poetry has to be read aloud. It has to be allowed. It has
Yes.
to be.
Yes, I
Mm.
agree.
And when we
It's
are reading, even when we are reading, we're listening, whatever, we are hearing it in our heads. So it's kind of the sound. Yeah.
I agree. When it's good, you want to read it aloud.
Mm,
That's a good sign when you want to read it aloud.
that's true, actually. Yeah. Actually, one should. I mean, there's no should about anything, but it's. I mean, for me, it's actually helped to pause every once in a while, even while you're writing, to read aloud to oneself before going on, to see if so far, the sound is making any sense at all. Um, so it's kind of that reading to oneself, reading aloud, reading to others, listening to others, that whole landscape of sound, the whole soundscape that one becomes acutely tuned to with writing songs. I think they both kind of help each other, poetry. And also I don't think that one needs to make a major distinction between poetry and song. Leonard
Mm,
Cohen, come on, he's a poet and a singer-songwriter, and Bob Dylan,
yeah,
and you know and
yes.
Jimi Hendrix, Doors. I mean, my goodness, what some of those lines are just absolute poetry,
Yeah.
Stop petitioning the Lord for prayer. Come on, I mean, that's like, it's poetry, so so much song is actually poetry.
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you.